Audacity and V. Chapter 1, Defiance. Jasmine, cedarwood, supposed to be dark musk, but it's cashmere wood. Substandard, but I suppose it can work. The waitress's whisper was nearly swallowed by the hum of the packed restaurant. The clack of Jimmy Choo's halted mid-stride. Heads turned. Excuse me. The woman's voice cracked through the air like a whip. Leonora Duval froze, tray trembling in her hand, and met the gaze of the tall woman she'd just insulted, eyes the color of storm-forged steel pinning her in place. What did you say? Leo felt those eyes strip her bare. Her throat went dry, but she forced the words out. The perfume you're wearing. Victoria Blackwood took one deliberate step closer, the scent of power and polished wealth clinging to her. The air chilled. You are wearing a signature scent, Leo continued, spine stiffening. Jasmine, cedarwood, and instead of dark musk, cashmere wood. It mimics the formula, but leaves a lesser finish. The CEO's expression iced over, pupils narrowing to blades. No one ever speaks to me like that, she hissed. Leo didn't flinch. Then your perfumer shouldn't have gotten lazy. Miss Blackwood, the table is ready, her assistant cut in quickly. Leo seized the moment, slipping away before the air could crack again. But Victoria Blackwood's thoughts stayed locked on her, the waitress with the sharp nose and sharper tongue. The scent clung to her skin like a challenge. Later, in her penthouse office, the city sprawled beneath her heels. She replayed the scene, every word. Her phone buzzed. Marcus, what did Jean say? On the other end, silence stretched before the confirmation came. The waitress had been right. The perfumer had been swapping ingredients, cutting corners, defrauding her. How long? 2 batches, maybe more. Victoria's fist slammed onto the desk. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Clean it up. Jean is finished. Moments later, her assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. Lucas has the waitress waiting in his office, Miss Blackwood. Chapter 2, Challenge. Leo sat perched on the edge of the chair in the manager's office, twisting a napkin between trembling fingers. The scent of espresso and disinfectant mixed with the faint trail of expensive perfume lingering in the air, her perfume. Luke, she said quietly, I need this job. I'll apologize if I have to. Luke rubbed his eyes. Leo, I really want to help you, but this is Victoria Blackwood we're talking about. She can buy this entire restaurant and turn it into a parking lot before lunch. The knock on the door came before she could reply. It wasn't loud, just precise, commanding. Luke's eyes widened. Oh, hell. Victoria Blackwood stepped in like a storm in heels. No introduction, no smile. The temperature in the room dipped as her gaze landed on Leo. Leo stood, automatically, back straight, chin up. If Victoria was going to crush her, she'd do it standing. How did you know? The CEO's voice was smooth, but carried that undercurrent, steel wrapped in silk. Leo inhaled, studying herself. 6 years chemical engineer. 2 in R&D at L'Oreal before they downsized. Her tone didn't waver. Perfume is familiar territory. Victoria tilted her head slightly, studying her like a specimen under glass. And now you're waitressing. Leo's lips quirked. Bills don't pay themselves. Besides, mixing drinks isn't that different from mixing formulas. Only difference is one gets people drunk, the other gets them addicted. A shadow of a smirk threatened Victoria's lips, but never made it. You're unusually mouthy for someone who just insulted me in public. I didn't insult you, Leo shot back. I pointed out a flaw. Victoria stepped closer, close enough that Leo caught the faintest trace of that same cashmere wood. And what gives you the right to tell me what a flaw is? Leo's heart hammered, but she didn't back down. Truth gives me the right. And your perfumer was lazy. You deserve to know. Victoria's brow lifted. Deserved? You think I need a waitress to tell me what I deserve? Leo's blue eyes flashed. When the waitress knows more than your so-called expert, yeah, maybe. Luke looked between them like he was watching 2 lions circle. Should I? Leave us, Victoria said, not looking away from Leo. He didn't hesitate. The door clicked shut. For a moment, silence thickened the air. The hum of the ceiling fan was the only sound. Victoria crossed her arms, regarding Leo as though she were measuring something invisible. You know, People don't usually interrupt me. Especially not to correct me. Leo exhaled softly. Then maybe people should start. That earned her a real reaction. The faintest twitch of Victoria's jaw, equal parts irritation and intrigue. You have a dangerous tongue, Miss Duval. Better than a lazy nose, Leo murmured. Victoria blinked once. Slowly. Careful, she warned, but there was amusement now, subtle, predatory. Why? Leo asked. You'll fire me from a job I already lost? The CEO took another deliberate step closer, invading her space, her perfume stronger now, jasmine, cedarwood, and that cheapened cashmere note. You might find, Victoria said softly, that losing this job isn't the worst thing that could happen to you. Leo met her gaze head-on. And you might find that I don't scare easily. For a moment, neither of them moved. The air between them vibrated challenge, curiosity, heat. Finally, Victoria straightened, her expression smoothing back into practiced calm. Marcus will contact you, she said coolly. You'll come to my office tomorrow at 9. Do not be late. Leo frowned. For what? Victoria turned toward the door, her voice a low purr. To see if your bark matches your bite. And with that, she was gone, leaving only the ghost of her perfume and the thunder of Leo's pulse behind. Chapter 3. The Offer. The elevator doors slid open with a low chime that sounded far too elegant for Leo's nerves. 47th floor. Blackwood Tower, the pulse of Victoria Blackwood's empire. Everything gleamed, marble floors, mirrored panels, a wall of glass overlooking the city like it belonged to her. Which, in a way, it did. Leo stepped out, clutching the strap of her bag tighter than she'd admit. She caught her reflection in the mirrored wall, tailored black slacks, crisp white blouse, hair pinned up. Not a uniform. Not a tray. Just her. The receptionist's voice broke through her thoughts. Miss Duval, Miss Blackwood is expecting you. Of course she was. The doors to Victoria's office were tall enough to make anyone hesitate. Leo didn't. She knocked once. Enter. The voice carried that same control as last night, smooth, sharp, impossible to ignore. Victoria Blackwood stood behind her desk, back to the city, the skyline draped in morning light behind her. She turned slowly, and Leo swore she could feel her heartbeat trip. Miss Duval, Victoria said, her tone perfectly even. You're punctual. I wasn't sure if you'd have the nerve. Leo's lips curved slightly. Disappointing people isn't really my style. Good, Victoria said, walking around the desk. Every movement was deliberate, a choreography of power. Because I don't tolerate disappointment. Leo watched her approach, her pulse steady, but her palms damp. Then why am I here, Miss Blackwood? To apologize again? A faint, dangerous smile curved Victoria's lips. Apologies bore me. I called you here for something different. She gestured toward a sleek chair across from her. Leo sat, though her posture stayed guarded. Victoria leaned against the desk, crossing her arms. Marcus confirmed your claim. My perfumer was altering formulas, replacing ingredients. Costing my company millions in potential losses. Leo blinked once. I'm sorry. Don't be, Victoria said. You were right. Which means you see what others miss. She paused, studying her. That's useful. Leo arched a brow. You brought me here to compliment my nose? The corner of Victoria's mouth lifted. I brought you here to offer you a job. Leo froze. You're joking. I don't joke, Victoria replied, circling the desk like a predator. I'm rebuilding my private R&D division, and I want you to head the scent reconstruction team. Leo let out a small laugh, disbelief coating every word. You fired your perfumer last night, and now you're hiring a waitress to replace him? Not a waitress, Victoria corrected softly. A chemist who called me out in public and still showed up here today. Their eyes locked. The air between them thickened. You don't like me, Leo said. Victoria's voice dropped to a near whisper. Liking isn't a requirement. Efficiency is. Then why me? Because you told me the truth, Victoria said simply. And I value truth even when it bites. Leo leaned back slightly, her tone dry. You're offering me a job because I insulted your perfume? Victoria smiled faintly. Let's call it recognizing potential. Leo tilted her head, the defiance flickering back to life in her eyes. And what if I say no? Victoria's expression didn't change, but her tone cooled. Then you'll go back to refilling wine glasses while someone else takes what could have been yours. Leo stood. You really don't know how to ask nicely, do you? Nicely doesn't get results, Victoria replied. 9 a.m. tomorrow. HR will handle the paperwork. Don't make me regret this. Leo got up to leave, but before she reached the door, Victoria's voice came again, quieter, almost thoughtful. Oh, and Miss Duval? Leo glanced back. This time, when you walk into my office, don't wear that cheap vanilla lotion. It clashes with your confidence. Leo's lips parted, partly shocked, partly amused. Noted. The door closed behind her, and for a brief second, Victoria allowed herself the smallest smile. Substandard, she murmured under her breath, recalling Leo's words. We'll see who's substandard. Chapter 4. Fire and Formula. The glass doors of Blackwood Incorporated whispered shut behind her, and for a moment Leo just stood there, feeling like she'd stepped into another world. Polished marble. Metallic accents. A faint, deliberate scent in the air, one that screamed money and control. Jasmine. Cedarwood. That same damn cashmere note. Welcome to Blackwood Incorporated, Miss Duval, the receptionist said with a polite, practiced smile. Miss Blackwood is expecting you in the R&D wing. Marcus Chan will escort you. Leo nodded, offering a tight smile of her own. Inside, her stomach was a knot of equal parts adrenaline and defiance. Marcus appeared a moment later, tall, impeccably dressed, the kind of man who probably wore a tie even on weekends. Miss Duval, he greeted, his tone courteous, but careful. If you'll follow me. As they walked through the sleek corridors, Leo caught glimpses of labs behind glass walls, technicians in white coats, precision instruments, vials of amber liquid catching the light like trapped gold. Quite the empire, she murmured. Marcus didn't look at her. Miss Blackwood doesn't build anything small. I noticed, Leo said dryly. He led her into a lab large enough to fit a small apartment. Clean lines, stainless steel counters, and the soft hum of climate control systems. A workstation waited at the center, a deliberate setup. Waiting for her. Miss Blackwood will be with you shortly, Marcus said before leaving, the door clicking shut behind him. Leo exhaled and took in the space. Her fingers brushed over the equipment, distillers, pipettes, chromatographs. The faint residue of perfume oils teased her senses, patchouli, bergamot, amber resin. It smelled like home and battle at the same time. The door opened. Victoria Blackwood stepped inside wearing charcoal gray, the kind of suit that could silence a boardroom. Her heels echoed once across the lab floor. Settling in, she asked. Trying to, Leo replied. You could have warned me I'd need a PhD and a bodyguard to walk through the lobby. Victoria's mouth curved slightly. Intimidation is a filter. It keeps the unworthy out. Leo crossed her arms. Then I guess I'm in by accident. Victoria's eyes glinted. You're in because I let you in. Don't confuse access with acceptance. Wouldn't dream of it, Leo said, tone matching hers soft, but sharp. Victoria studied her for a moment, as if testing how far she could push before Leo cracked. Then, with the elegance of someone used to control, she slid a file across the counter. Your first task, she said. Recreate this. Leo flipped through the notes, her brow furrowing. You want me to reverse engineer black number 7? Your flagship scent. Victoria's gaze didn't waver. Precisely. The formula's been compromised. I want to know exactly where the substitution started and what gene was replacing. Leo met her eyes. You could have given this to your existing team. I did, Victoria said coolly. They failed. Leo gave a low whistle. No pressure then. Victoria stepped closer. Pressure reveals truth. You seem fond of that. Leo smirked. Truth doesn't always smell pleasant. Neither does failure. Their eyes locked, not adversaries, not yet allies, but something volatile in between. Leo broke the silence first. Fine. I'll need access to the raw stock. And whoever's been signing off on ingredient orders. Victoria nodded once. Done. Marcus will get you clearance. Leo looked back down at the notes, then up again. You're really trusting me with this? I'm trusting results, Victoria replied. And if you disappoint me, you'll know what regret smells like. Leo's lips curved faintly. Sweet and smoky, I bet. Victoria blinked, and for the first time, she almost smiled. Get to work, Miss Duval. She turned to leave, but paused at the door. Oh, and one more thing, she said without turning around. Lose that damn vanilla lotion. I replaced the air filters. I can smell it from here. Leo laughed softly. You really do have a nose for control. I have a nose for quality, Victoria corrected, then disappeared through the door, leaving behind the faint trace of jasmine and power. Leo exhaled, shaking her head, a grin threatening despite herself. What did I just sign up for? Chapter 5, After Hours. The rest of the R&D staff had long since left, their goodnights echoing faintly through the glass corridor. The lights were dimmed now, leaving only the amber glow of the lab tables. Leo stood over a row of vials, concentration furrowing her brow as she took a slow inhale of the scent she'd been reconstructing. She swirled a test strip between her fingers. Dark musk, she murmured. Not cashmere wood. Never cashmere wood. Her voice broke the silence, and the room seemed to hum in response. She adjusted the pipette, measured, then inhaled again. Almost right. Almost. The soft click of heels stopped her mid-motion. Working late already? Leo didn't turn. Deadlines wait for no one. Especially not your empire, Miss Blackwood. Victoria's reflection appeared in the glass panel beside her, all shadow and poise. She was still in her suit, jacket off, sleeves rolled up just enough to make her look more dangerous than corporate. I expected progress, Victoria said. Not a soliloquy. Leo smirked faintly. Some of us talk to the formulas. They tend to be more honest than people. Victoria stepped closer, glancing at the rows of vials. And what are they telling you tonight? That your perfumer didn't just substitute ingredients, Leo said, handing her a strip. He diluted them. Every batch. Small enough to go unnoticed unless you knew what to smell for. Victoria lifted the strip to her nose, inhaled, slow, deliberate. You're right, she said finally. It's faint. Synthetic. Told you, Leo said softly. Cheap. Victoria turned to face her. You're awfully blunt for someone on her first day. Leo met her gaze evenly. You hired me for my nose, not my manners. Victoria's lips curved slightly. True. But you'll find that in my company both matters. Guess I'm a work in progress then. Victoria's eyes lingered on her long enough for Leo to feel the weight of it. You surprise me, Miss Duval. Leo arched a brow. Not many people can do that, I take it? Hardly anyone, Victoria admitted, almost under her breath. A moment stretched between them, the kind that didn't belong in offices or between a CEO and an employee. Leo looked away first, her voice quiet but steady. You should rest, Miss Blackwood. The world will still be yours in the morning. Victoria studied her for a beat longer before replying. You don't sound impressed by that. I'm not, Leo said simply. Owning everything doesn't mean you feel anything. The words hit like perfume, subtle at first, then lingering. Victoria's tone dropped, soft but dangerous. Careful, Miss Duval. That almost sounded personal. Maybe it is, Leo said, eyes flicking up. Maybe I've seen enough people lose themselves trying to own everything. Victoria didn't respond immediately. Her gaze softened, just barely, before she straightened. Get some rest. I want the full report on my desk tomorrow morning. Leo smiled faintly. Yes, ma'am. Victoria paused at the door, glancing over her shoulder. And Miss Duval? Yes. Don't mistake my patience for leniency. Leo tilted her head. Wouldn't dream of it. When the door finally shut behind Victoria, Leo exhaled, realizing she'd been holding her breath. She looked at the strip still resting on the table, the faintest trace of the CEO's perfume clinging to it. Dark musk, she whispered, eyes glinting. Let's see if you can handle a little of that. Chapter 6, First Impressions. The elevator ride up to the 47th floor felt longer than it should have. Leo gripped the strap of her bag, her knuckles pale against the leather. Every polished surface, every mirrored panel reflected a version of herself she didn't recognize, tailored, composed, but still bristling with defiance. Miss Duval, Marcus greeted as the doors opened. Today will be instructive. Leo arched a brow. Instructive how? Marcus gave a faint, knowing smile. You'll see soon enough. Just stay on your toes. The lab was buzzing with activity already. Technicians in pristine white coats moved with practiced precision, but the moment Leo stepped in, a ripple of whispers ran through the room. New hire, one woman muttered, glancing at Leo's notebook. Looks like someone finally called her out, another replied under her breath. Leo ignored them, setting her bag down and taking in the room. Her workstation was pristine, everything she needed to start the reverse engineering process. A soft, commanding voice cut through the hum of machinery. Miss Duval, you're punctual. Leo looked up. Victoria Blackwood stood at the threshold, flawless in a tailored gray suit, hands clasped behind her back. Her presence alone seemed to organize the chaos into a tense, controlled flow. Good morning, Miss Blackwood, Leo said, her tone steady, unwavering. Victoria's eyes scanned the lab, lingering on the staff. Today is about proving competence, she said slowly. Not just chemistry, but judgment. Initiative. Observation. Leo met her gaze evenly. And how do you propose to test all that? Victoria's lips curved faintly. By watching you fail and succeed at the same time. Leo smirked under her breath. Charming. Victoria's heels clicked as she approached her. You're not here for charm, Miss Duval. You're here to rebuild something that was nearly destroyed. Leo leaned over her workstation, flipping through notes. Then I'd better get started. Jean left quite a mess. Mess? Victoria repeated, tilting her head. I call it negligence. Leo's eyes flicked up. Call it what you want. I call it opportunity. Victoria stopped just short of her, the air between them taut and almost electric. Interesting choice of words. Leo smiled faintly. I prefer my words precise, like my formulas. Victoria's eyes lingered on her a beat too long, then she straightened. See that the vials are ready for testing. And Miss Duval. Yes. Don't underestimate anyone here. Not me. Not them. And definitely not yourself. Leo nodded, turning back to her bench. The hum of the lab felt alive now, but not as alive as the pulse in her chest. Victoria Blackwood watched her from the doorway for a moment, then pivoted to the staff. Keep an eye on her, she said quietly, almost as an afterthought. She's not ordinary. And as Victoria's heels clicked away down the corridor, Leo allowed herself a small grin. Not ordinary, she thought. That suits me just fine. Chapter 7. Collision in the Lab. The lab was quiet except for the steady hum of the distillation units and the occasional click of Leo's pipette. Every vial in front of her seemed to mock her, Jean's careless substitutions, the compromised formulas, and she relished the challenge. Leo didn't notice Victoria enter. Not until the faintest shift in the air told her someone had stepped closer. You're very methodical, Victoria said, voice smooth and sharp, a presence that seemed to occupy every corner of the lab. Leo froze, pipette mid-drop. Slowly, she turned, meeting Victoria's dark gray eyes, the ones that could dissect a person in an instant. You're early, she said, keeping her voice steady. I like to observe, Victoria replied, stepping closer. To see how people handle stress. Leo placed the pipette down carefully, leaning against the counter. Stress is subjective. Some of us thrive on it. Victoria's lips curved faintly, but her eyes didn't waver. Do you? I do, Leo said evenly. Some of us prefer to fight rather than follow instructions blindly. Victoria's gaze sharpened. Bold. Dangerous. I wonder if you realize how close that is to defiance. Leo met her stare without flinching. I know exactly what it is. And you? Victoria's posture stiffened imperceptibly, then she leaned slightly closer, as if testing the space between them. I wonder if you know what you're stepping into. Leo smirked, finally daring. Maybe I like stepping into things I shouldn't. Victoria's eyes flickered, registering something unexpected, before narrowing with precise control. Do you? She asked, voice low. Or are you just naive? Leo's lips curved faintly. Perhaps a little of both. But I don't scare easily, Miss Blackwood. If that's what you're trying to do. Victoria's breath caught almost imperceptibly, a crack in her otherwise flawless composure. Then she straightened, a faint smirk tugging at her lips. Interesting. I like people who don't scare easily. Leo lifted a vial, studying the liquid inside. And I like people who don't intimidate me. Victoria's expression darkened, a shadow of amusement crossing her face. Careful. Here, intimidation isn't a threat. It's a tool. And I've yet to see if you can handle it. Leo's pulse quickened, not with fear, but anticipation. Then maybe you'll just have to show me. Victoria's eyes lingered on her, the tension almost visible, until she finally straightened. Continue. And remember, perfection isn't optional here. Leo exhaled softly, then turned back to her vials, a thrill running through her. Perfection isn't optional, she mused. Good. Neither is defiance. The air between them still thrummed with electricity, silent but undeniable. Both knew this was only the beginning, a battle of wits, will, and maybe something far more dangerous. Chapter 8. The Black Number 7 Test. The lab was quiet, every sound amplified, the soft hiss of the distillation unit, the faint drip of liquid into a vial, the shuffle of papers. Leo's workstation was immaculate, the vials lined up like soldiers ready for inspection. Victoria stood at the far side of the lab, arms crossed, eyes scanning every move Leo made. She didn't need to speak. The weight of her presence was pressure enough. Leo picked up a test strip and inhaled carefully, closing her eyes for a fraction of a second. Jasmine, cedarwood, dark musk, she murmured, fingers adjusting the pipette with precision. Got it. Now, let's see if you've been messing with me, Jean. Victoria stepped closer, heels clicking softly against the floor. I hope you realize this isn't just about replicating a scent, she said, her tone sharp but smooth. It's about detecting every subtle deviation, every shortcut, every lie hidden in a bottle. Leo didn't flinch. I realize. That's why I'm here. She measured, mixed, and tested, the vials passing from one hand to the other, the liquid changing hue under her careful guidance. Each step precise, calculated, but infused with a subtle defiance. Victoria watched her fingers move, noting the ease, the confidence. You're meticulous, she observed. Do you always handle your chaos with such elegance? Leo smirked without looking up. Chaos is part of the process. Perfection isn't. Victoria's eyes flickered. And yet, I demand perfection. Leo's hands never paused. Then we're on the same team in that case. Both impossible to please. A vial slipped slightly, and Leo caught it just before it hit the counter. Victoria raised an eyebrow. Almost careless. Are you human after all? Leo's eyes met hers, steady, unapologetic. Human enough to notice when someone's standing too close. Victoria's lips quirked in the faintest smile. Interesting. You don't flinch. The test continued. Drop by drop, sniff by sniff, Leo reconstructed the black number 7 formula, correcting the subtle alterations Jean had made. Victoria circled her, silent, yet every movement spoke volumes. Finally, Leo leaned back slightly, inhaling the recreated scent on the final strip. Done. And I'd say, it's improved. Not a hint of cashmere would left. Dark musk restored. Victoria stepped forward, taking the strip from her hand. She inhaled slowly, deliberately, and the tension in the air thickened. Impressive, Victoria said softly, almost to herself. Then she looked up, eyes locking with Leo's. You might survive here, if you can keep up. Leo let out a slow breath, heart still racing. Maybe I don't need to just survive. Victoria's smirk deepened. Careful, Miss Duval. That sounds dangerously like a challenge. Leo's eyes glinted. Maybe I like challenges. The air between them hummed, not just from the lab equipment, but from something more potent. Something neither of them could ignore. Victoria turned, leaving Leo to her work, but the glance over her shoulder said it all. The game had begun, and neither of them intended to lose. Chapter 9. The Time Trial. The lab lights were brighter than usual, the hum of machines louder, almost like the building itself was aware of what was about to unfold. Leo adjusted her gloves and wiped her hands on her coat. Every fiber of her being was focused, yet her pulse betrayed the thrill running through her. Victoria Blackwood stepped into the room, a stopwatch in one hand and a faint smirk on her lips. "Today, Miss Duval," Victoria said, her voice smooth but commanding. "You're not just recreating a formula. You're doing it under observation, on a timer." Leo's brow arched. "Timed? You think pressure will break me?" Victoria stepped closer, heels clicking sharply. "I think you might break yourself trying not to disappoint me." Leo's pulse skipped, part adrenaline, part something more dangerous. "I don't disappoint easily." "Good," Victoria murmured, circling her slowly. "Because I don't tolerate mistakes." She pressed the stopwatch to Leo's workstation. "You have 3 hours. Replicate black number 7 perfectly. Any deviation, any misstep, and we start over from scratch." Leo nodded, dropping into her stance. "Understood." Victoria leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching her with the intensity of a predator studying prey. "Go." The timer clicked. Leo moved like a conductor orchestrating chaos, measuring, mixing, sniffing, adjusting. Each step precise, each inhalation exact. She caught every subtle shift in scent, corrected every slight imbalance Jean had left behind. Victoria circled her, silent but ever-present. The faint scent of her perfume lingered in the air: jasmine, cedarwood, dark musk, sharp, intoxicating. Leo could feel her eyes on her, every glance an invisible pressure point. "Interesting technique," Victoria murmured, stopping behind her. "You rely on instinct as much as knowledge." Leo didn't flinch. "Instinct is what keeps me alive. Knowledge is what keeps me from failing." Victoria's gaze softened for the briefest moment before snapping back into command. 3 hours. Tick, tick, Miss Duval. Time waits for no one. The minutes passed like seconds. Beakers clinked, liquids swirled, strips of paper tested, notes scribbled in a frenzy of calculation. Sweat prickled at Leo's brow, but her hands didn't shake. Then a shadow fell across her workstation. Victoria leaned close, almost too close, and whispered, "You're meticulous, but careful. A single misstep, and you'll feel the weight of my patience." Leo's lips curved, a hint of defiance in her voice. "I like weight. Makes the victory sweeter." Victoria's eyes darkened, catching the spark she hadn't expected to find. "Bold. Dangerous. Exactly the kind of person I should never let go." The final minutes ticked down. Leo held her breath, inhaling the recreated perfume one last time. She held the strip up. "Perfect." Victoria took it, sniffed, and the silence stretched unbearably. Then, the faintest smirk curved her lips. "Impressive," she said softly, almost a purr. 3 hours, no mistakes. "You've earned my attention." Leo's chest rose and fell, adrenaline coursing through her. "Attention is dangerous," she replied, meeting Victoria's gaze evenly. Victoria stepped back, letting the tension linger. "Maybe I like dangerous," she said, then finally turned, letting the timer tick down its final seconds. Leo allowed herself a breath, heart still racing. She had survived, thrived under the impossible pressure of Victoria Blackwood. And both of them knew this was only the beginning. Chapter 9: Restoring Order. The hum of the lab seemed louder now, the faint echoes of Jean's shortcuts lingering in every corner. Leo rolled up her sleeves and surveyed the room with a practiced eye. Every shelf, every vial, every label screamed compromise, substitutions, dilutions, carelessness. She let out a slow breath. "All right," she murmured to herself. "Time to make this right." One by one, she removed the substandard vials, carefully labeling the ones to discard. Cashmere wood instead of dark musk, inferior cedar blends, half-measured jasmine, it all went into a box marked discard. Each one a silent testament to negligence. With deliberate precision, she replaced everything with true, authentic ingredients, unorthodox yet perfect. Victoria watched from the doorway, eyes flicking between awe and disbelief. "You actually know what you're doing," she admitted reluctantly. "I told you." 6 years chemical engineering, 2 years R&D. "And a stubborn streak you'll never tame," Leo quipped. The tension was electric, professionalism intertwined with sparks of desire. Victoria lingered at the doorway, her arms crossed, observing without a word. You're ruthless, she said finally, almost approvingly. Leo didn't flinch. I'm precise. There's a difference. One mistake in this lab, one shortcut, and the whole line suffers. I don't intend to let that happen again. Victoria stepped closer, her heels clicking on the lab floor. I see. You don't just fix mistakes, you erase them. Leo smirked faintly. I prefer to call it restoration. She moved with fluid precision, replacing the discarded bottles with authentic ingredients she had pre-verified: rich jasmine from Grasse, the proper dark musk, true cedarwood. Each vial placed carefully in perfect alignment, the workspace now pristine and calibrated. Victoria watched her silently, a faint glint in her eyes. You're transforming chaos into control, she said softly. Exactly, Leo replied, setting the last vial in place. Control. And this, she gestured around the lab, is how you protect a brand from people who think shortcuts are clever. Victoria finally approached the counter, leaning slightly, eyes scanning the perfectly organized workspace. I expected competence, she said slowly. But this is artistry. Leo raised an eyebrow. Artistry and chemistry are closer than you think. One wrong note and the whole thing collapses. Victoria's gaze met hers, sharp and intense. You've made this lab yours already, and yet, I can't decide if I should be impressed or wary. Leo's lips curved into a small, confident smile. Wary is healthy. Keeps people like you awake. For a heartbeat, the lab was silent, except for the hum of the machines, the faint scent of jasmine and dark musk filling the air, and the invisible tension between them. Victoria finally straightened, giving a small nod of approval. Fine. The lab is acceptable. Leo crossed her arms, smirking. Acceptable? I was going for perfection. Victoria's eyes darkened slightly, a dangerous, amused glint surfacing. Perfection isn't given, Miss Duval. It's earned. And I have a feeling we're just getting started. Chapter 10, The Trial of Number 7. The lab smelled alive now, jasmine, cedarwood, and the true dark musk filling the air, each note sharp and uncompromising. Every vial, every reagent had been replaced with authentic ingredients, aligned perfectly on the counters. The chaos Jean had left behind was erased, and the space now hummed with potential and danger. Victoria Blackwood stood at the far side of the room, arms crossed, eyes sharp and unreadable. In her hand was the stopwatch, already ticking, the countdown a silent predator. You have 3 hours, Victoria said, voice smooth but edged with steel. Replicate number 7 exactly. Not a fraction off. Not a note misplaced. I will be watching. Every move. Every inhalation. Every calculation. One mistake, and we start over from scratch. Leo nodded, muscles coiled, mind focused. Understood. No mistakes. Victoria stepped closer, a faint smirk on her lips. No excuses either. I don't tolerate excuses. The timer clicked, and Leo's hands moved with methodical precision, fluid and sure. She measured each ingredient, adjusting for temperature, humidity, and evaporation. Each vial was handled like a weapon, every drop critical, every scent scrutinized. Victoria circled her, silent, but every movement was intentional. The faint scent of her own perfume lingered in the air, a shadow over Leo's focus, a subtle reminder that someone was watching, calculating, judging. You're meticulous, Victoria observed, stopping behind her. And precise. But I wonder, do you thrive under pressure, or do you merely survive it? Leo didn't flinch. I thrive. I've never survived by accident. A faint smile tugged at Victoria's lips. Bold. I like bold. Minutes passed like seconds. Pipettes clinked, liquids swirled, strips of paper tested, notes scribbled. Sweat pricked at Leo's brow, but her hands remained steady. Every subtle deviation Jean had left behind was corrected, every diluted note restored. Victoria stepped closer, close enough that Leo could feel the faint heat of her presence. You're doing well, she murmured, almost a whisper. But the real test is consistency. Can you replicate perfection under my eyes? Leo's pulse quickened. Then watch carefully, Miss Blackwood. The final minutes ticked down. Leo held her breath, inhaling the recreated number 7 one last time. The scent was flawless, sharp, and intoxicating. She held up the final strip. Victoria took it from her hand, inhaled slowly, deliberately. The silence stretched, thick and electric, until she finally exhaled, a long, controlled breath. "Perfect," Victoria said softly, almost a purr. Her dark eyes locked with Leo's, sharp, intense, almost dangerous. 3 hours. No mistakes. You've earned my attention. Leo let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Attention is dangerous, she replied, steady and unflinching. Victoria's lips curved into a faint, dangerous smirk. "Maybe I like dangerous," she said, turning to leave, but pausing at the door. "Don't disappoint me, Miss Duval. That is not optional." The lab hummed around them, the scent of jasmine, cedarwood, and dark musk lingering like a promise. Leo returned to her workstation, but her heart was still racing, part from the trial, part from the woman who watched her every move. And somewhere above, Victoria Blackwood allowed herself a slow, almost imperceptible smile. Interesting. Very interesting. Chapter 11, Aftermath. The lab had returned to its usual hum, but the air between Leo and Victoria felt charged, heavier than any electricity from the equipment. Leo cleaned her station meticulously, her hands moving automatically, but her mind replayed every moment of the trial. Victoria leaned against the counter at the far side, arms crossed, watching. She said nothing, but the weight of her gaze was impossible to ignore. Leo could feel it on her neck, on her back, a shadow that pressed just enough to test her composure. Finally, Victoria spoke, her voice low and deliberate. "You handled that remarkably, considering the circumstances." Leo didn't look up immediately. "I didn't just handle it. I corrected it. Everything Jean screwed up is gone." Victoria's eyes flicked to the newly organized vials, then back to Leo. "Yes, you have skill, precision, nerve." Leo finally met her gaze, unwavering. "You're not going to tell me I impressed you, are you?" Victoria's lips quirked. "Impressing me isn't part of your job description, but it is part of the reason I'm intrigued." Leo's pulse skipped. Intrigued. Victoria stepped closer, slow, deliberate, letting the tension coil around them. "Yes, intrigued. You have the audacity to defy me, and the competence to survive it. That combination is rare." Leo's smirk returned, small but confident. "Rare? Maybe. Dangerous? Definitely." Victoria's gaze lingered, sharp, calculating, almost predatory. "Careful, Miss Duval. Dangerous is a word I respond to." Leo's hands paused in mid-motion. "Respond how?" Victoria's voice softened just enough to make it lethal. "By testing limits. By challenging boundaries. By watching closely." Leo swallowed the lump in her throat, but held her ground. "I like boundaries. They're meant to be tested." A faint, almost imperceptible smirk tugged at Victoria's lips. "Bold. Stubborn. Reckless." She tilted her head, studying Leo like a puzzle she wasn't sure she wanted solved. "I'll admit, this will be interesting." Leo returned her gaze steadily. "Interesting? I was hoping for dangerous." Victoria's eyes darkened, a spark flashing in the depths of her gray irises. "Oh, it will be. Believe me, Miss Duval, it will be." For a moment, neither moved, the air between them vibrating with unspoken challenges, silent sparks that could ignite at the slightest touch. Then Victoria straightened, stepping back toward the door. "I'll leave you to finalize the notes from the trial," she said, voice smooth, commanding. "But remember, this is only the beginning." Leo exhaled slowly, pulse still racing. "I wouldn't have it any other way." Victoria paused at the doorway, looking back one last time. The briefest smile curved her lips, equal parts warning and invitation, before she left, leaving Leo alone in the lab, surrounded by the scent of jasmine, cedarwood, and dark musk, and the undeniable thrill of the challenge that had only just begun. Chapter 12, Office Currents. The morning sun streamed through the towering windows of Blackwood Incorporated, the city below a blur of movement. Leo stepped into the open office, her boots clicking against the polished floors. The staff glanced up briefly, whispers fluttering through the room like tentative currents. Marcus Chan, ever watchful, gave her a small nod. First day in the open lab? You handled it well yesterday. Victoria didn't raise a hand, which I count as high praise. Leo smirked, adjusting the strap of her bag. High praise, low chance of survival. I'll take it. The office buzzed with activity. Technicians, analysts, and assistants moved with practiced precision. But now, Leo was not an outsider. She had restored order, fixed the compromised formulas, and survived the trial of Black Number 7. Slowly, whispers became cautious respect. Victoria arrived silently, as always, gliding through the office with the grace of someone who owned not just the building, but the air itself. She stopped by a workstation near Leo, eyes scanning the screens, fingers tapping lightly against her chin. Miss Duval, she said, voice low, carrying just enough edge to make it sharp. Do you know what the team thinks of you? Leo met her gaze evenly. That I'm competent. And stubborn enough to survive you. Victoria's lips curved faintly, almost approvingly. Survive me, and yet you push boundaries. Curious. Leo arched a brow. Curiosity killed the cat, you know. And satisfaction brought it back, Victoria countered smoothly. A subtle tension threaded through their banter, sharp enough for the staff to notice, yet almost invisible in its intensity. Marcus cleared his throat awkwardly and moved past them, muttering something about coffee runs. Leo returned her attention to her workstation, organizing notes from yesterday's trial, but she could feel Victoria's eyes on her, tracking every movement, every breath. It was subtle, but unmistakable, a game of observation and control. Then Victoria leaned slightly closer, whispering, "Do not make the mistake of thinking competence will make me gentle." Leo smirked, replying softly, "I don't need gentleness. I need a challenge." Victoria straightened, letting the words linger in the air before walking away. But the faintest trace of a smirk remained, a promise of more tests to come. Across the office, other staff glanced between the two women, sensing the quiet storm brewing, something far more powerful than authority or skill. Something personal. Leo exhaled softly, a thrill running through her. The lab was hers to command, but the real game, the dangerous, intoxicating game, was just beginning. Chapter 13. The Unorthodox Creation. The lab was quiet, save for the soft hum of equipment and the faint drip of liquids into glass vials. Leo stood at her workstation, surveying the array of ingredients before her. Today, she wasn't recreating perfection, she was inventing it. Her mind raced with possibilities, scents that clashed but harmonized, notes that were unconventional yet alluring. Jasmine, yes, but paired with something unexpected, a hint of bergamot and black pepper. Dark musk? Subtle, but layered with vetiver. Cedarwood grounded it, while a whisper of oud threaded through like a secret promise. Leo's fingers moved with confidence, mixing, sniffing, adjusting. Every combination was a question, every drop a gamble. She knew the risk. Victoria Blackwood was not one to tolerate mistakes, yet she trusted her instincts. Victoria arrived silently, as always, observing. She didn't speak, didn't even step close. She just leaned against the far counter, eyes sharp, reading every move. Leo inhaled, then held the final vial up. The scent was bold, unorthodox, unexpected. It was not Black Number 7, not a mimic of perfection, it was something entirely new, something with fire and intrigue. Victoria took a slow step closer, her eyes narrowing as she sniffed the air. Leo held her breath. Finally, Victoria picked up the vial, held it under her nose, and inhaled deliberately. The silence stretched like a taut wire. "Interesting," she said finally, her voice measured, almost too casual. "It defies expectation." Leo arched an eyebrow. "Defiance is part of the process." Victoria's lips quirked faintly, a shadow of a smile. "Bold. Unorthodox. Dangerous, in the right measure." Leo allowed herself a small, satisfied smirk. Dangerous can be desirable. Victoria's eyes flicked up, catching hers, sharp and unreadable. She placed the vial down carefully, her fingers lingering a fraction too long. "You took a risk, and it worked." Don't think I'll show approval easily, but well done. Leo tilted her head, sensing the subtle warmth beneath the ice. I wasn't creating to please you. Victoria's gaze held hers, intensity smoldering. No, you were creating to prove that you could. Leo let the words hang between them, the unspoken acknowledgement more potent than any praise. Victoria turned, gliding toward the door, but her glance back was electric, a mix of warning, respect, and something she would never outright admit. As Victoria's heels clicked away, Leo inhaled deeply, the new scent filling the lab. It was hers, daring and unorthodox, and for the first time, she felt the thrill of having carved out her own space in Victoria's world. Chapter 14. Naming the Unorthodox. The next morning, the lab buzzed with quiet anticipation. Leo had carefully prepared vials of her new scent, bold, unorthodox, alive. Today, it wouldn't just linger in the lab, it would meet Victoria's scrutiny in a real-world scenario. Victoria entered silently, as always, her heels clicking softly against the floor. Her gray eyes swept the lab, finally landing on the new bottles. You've done more than replicate perfection, she said, voice cool but intrigued. You've created something entirely different. Leo smiled faintly. I told you, defiance is part of the process. Victoria circled the lab, observing the scent carefully, not testing, not sniffing, just absorbing. After a long moment, she finally leaned in, inhaling the first vial deliberately. Her expression remained carefully neutral, but the faintest shift at her eyes betrayed her interest. Not bad, she said finally, dismissive yet measured. Dangerous, unorthodox, and I can't tell if I like it or if it unnerves me. Leo's smirk returned. Maybe that's the point. Victoria's gaze flicked to the remaining vials. I want the rest tested, properly. If it works under scrutiny, we'll talk. Hours later, after testing, adjusting, and refining under Victoria's sharp observation, Leo finally set the last vial on the counter. Victoria leaned forward, inspecting it once more, silent, unreadable. Now, Victoria said finally, voice low and deliberate, it needs a name. Something fitting. Leo's eyes lit with a spark of mischief. She picked up the vial, holding it delicately between her fingers. I've been thinking about that, she said softly. A name that captures the danger, the elegance, and the defiance. Victoria arched an eyebrow, intrigued despite herself. Go on. Leo's voice dropped to a whisper, confident and teasing. I call it Midnight Rebellion. Victoria's gray eyes widened slightly, just a fraction, almost imperceptible, before she masked it with a neutral tilt of her head. Midnight Rebellion, she repeated, tasting the words. Fitting. Bold. Daring. I suppose even I can appreciate Audacity when it's well executed. Leo's smirk deepened. Audacity suits you too, Miss Blackwood. You just refuse to admit it. Victoria's lips twitched at the corner, a fleeting smile that vanished almost instantly. Perhaps, she murmured, her voice softening just enough to be dangerous. Perhaps. But do not get used to approval being handed so easily, Miss Duval. Midnight Rebellion is an exception, not a rule. Leo met her gaze evenly, unflinching. Then I'll enjoy it while it lasts. Victoria stepped back, finally breaking the proximity, but the tension between them lingered like an electric charge in the air. Very well. Let's see if your rebellion survives the world outside this lab. Leo inhaled deeply, the scent of Midnight Rebellion filling the space, the thrill of victory and the danger of Victoria's attention merging into a potent, intoxicating mix. And somewhere beneath her composed exterior, Victoria Blackwood allowed herself the smallest acknowledgement. This woman was unlike any she'd ever encountered, brilliant, bold, and defiantly dangerous. Chapter 15. Public Trial of Midnight Rebellion. The boardroom of Blackwood Incorporated gleamed under polished crystal lights. City skyscrapers framed the windows, but Leo's focus was on the room. A dozen senior executives, marketing strategists, and potential clients waiting, sharp and expectant. Every eye was on the new creation, Midnight Rebellion. Leo adjusted the vial on the presentation table, her pulse steady, her mind sharp. Victoria stood behind her, arms crossed, gray eyes cold but focused, an invisible tether keeping her every move under watch. "Good morning," Leo began, voice calm, professional. "What I present to you today is not a replication of what is known, but a bold step into the uncharted. Midnight Rebellion." A few eyebrows lifted. Victoria's lips twitched, just slightly, almost imperceptibly, at the confident cadence of Leo's announcement. "Observe," Leo continued, expertly applying the scent to tester strips, passing them around. Notes of jasmine intertwined with hints of bergamot and black pepper, dark musk layered subtly with vetiver, and cedarwood anchored the blend. A whisper of oud lingered, enigmatic and daring. Murmurs rose among the board members and clients. Eyes widened, nods exchanged. This was unfamiliar territory, yet it intrigued, captivated. Victoria leaned forward slightly, silent but piercing. Leo could feel her gaze like a weight, the kind that both judged and measured, a thrill in itself. One client, a tall woman with sharp cheekbones, finally spoke. "It's unusual, unexpected, and yet intoxicating. I didn't think this would work." Leo smiled faintly. "It's meant to challenge perception, not conform to expectation." Victoria's eyes darkened subtly, watching Leo's confidence bloom under the scrutiny she herself imposed. "Bold," she murmured under her breath, audible only to Leo. Another executive asked, and the name. Leo held the vial delicately. "Midnight Rebellion," she said, letting the words roll off her tongue like a promise. "A scent that defies convention, embraces risk, and challenges even the most refined expectations." The room went quiet for a heartbeat, then applause broke out, polite but genuine. Victoria, however, remained still, lips curved faintly at the corner, her gray eyes unreadable yet burning with quiet approval. Finally, she stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. "Exceptional work, Miss Duval," she said, voice low, precise. "You've not only created a scent, you've made a statement. But remember." Leo looked up, meeting Victoria's gaze directly. "Yes." Victoria's lips quirked in the faintest smirk. "Statements are easy to make. Maintaining them, now, that is where the challenge truly begins." Leo's chest rose, heart racing not from fear, but exhilaration. "I don't shy away from challenges." Victoria's gaze lingered a moment longer before she straightened, regal and untouchable. "Good. Because I do not tolerate the timid." The room buzzed with conversation, but Leo barely noticed. She inhaled subtly, the scent of Midnight Rebellion drifting through the air, daring, unorthodox, alive, and somewhere behind her, Victoria Blackwood allowed herself the smallest acknowledgement. This woman was a force to be reckoned with. Chapter 16. Private Debrief. The boardroom emptied quickly, leaving the polished table gleaming and the city skyline sprawled beyond the windows. Victoria Blackwood gestured for Leo to follow her down the hall to a smaller office, the air between them taut with unspoken energy. The moment the door closed, Victoria turned sharply, eyes sharp and cold as ice. "Miss Duval," she said, voice low, controlled. "You've managed to survive the trial, publicly impressing clients and executives alike." "That's unexpected." Leo's lips curved into a small, confident smirk. "Unexpected can be my specialty." Victoria's gaze sharpened, cutting like a blade. "You're bold, reckless, and yet precise. That combination is dangerous in my world." Leo stepped closer, meeting her eyes without hesitation. "Dangerous can be desirable." Victoria's gray eyes narrowed, assessing, calculating, and for a heartbeat, the professional mask slipped just enough to show a flicker of intrigue. "You've created a scent that challenges expectation, a statement that could either elevate or ruin a brand overnight. And yet, you handled it with audacity." Leo's smirk deepened. "I didn't just handle it. I owned it. Every note, every layer, my choice." Victoria's arms crossed, leaning slightly against the edge of the desk. The closeness was electric. "I would like to believe this. Midnight Rebellion could succeed without being reckless. But you've proven you're unafraid to push limits." Leo tilted her head, letting the tension coil between them. "Unafraid and unshakable. Victoria's lips twitched at the corner, a fleeting, almost imperceptible smile. Confident. Defiant. Stubborn. And you, Leo's voice softened, almost teasing, seem unaccustomed to being impressed. Victoria's gray eyes locked with hers, intensity burning beneath the composed exterior. Impressed is not a word I give freely. But, she paused, voice low, controlled, dangerous. You've earned something few ever do, my attention. And that is not insignificant. Leo's pulse quickened, a thrill running through her veins. Attention can be a dangerous game, Miss Blackwood. Victoria stepped closer, close enough that the air between them was almost tangible, the scent of her signature perfume mingling with the lingering notes of midnight rebellion. Perhaps, she murmured, voice soft but cutting. Perhaps I like dangerous. Leo's smirk turned into a confident grin. Good. Because I'm just getting started. Victoria's eyes glimmered with an unreadable fire, the faintest hint of a challenge in her expression. So am I, Miss Duval. So am I. The room seemed to shrink around them, charged with tension, defiance, and the beginning of a dangerous, intoxicating game, one that neither of them intended to lose. Chapter 17. The Independent Assignment. The next morning, Leo arrived at Blackwood Tower with the weight of anticipation pressing at her shoulders. Marcus Chan had briefed her. Victoria had requested her personally for a project of unprecedented importance. Victoria waited in her office, back to the windows, arms crossed, staring out over the city. The faint scent of her perfume lingered in the room, sharp and commanding. You're here, Victoria said without turning. Her voice was calm, but it carried that undercurrent of authority that made even the boldest staff hesitate. I wouldn't miss it, Leo replied, stepping inside, her heels clicking against the floor. Victoria finally turned, gray eyes sharp as knives. I'm assigning you something delicate. A new line, experimental blends, nothing like anything we've produced before. You will be fully responsible for the formulation, presentation, and final approval. Failure is not an option. Leo raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Full responsibility. Understood. And what makes this delicate? Victoria stepped closer, her presence filling the office. This isn't just about skill, Miss Duval. It's about nerve, intuition, and understanding what people want before they even know it themselves. The wrong note, the wrong balance, and you could ruin weeks of work and millions in projected revenue. Leo met her gaze steadily, refusing to be intimidated. Then I'll make sure it's not the wrong note. Or balance. Or scent. Victoria's lips twitched at the corner, a faint acknowledgement. Good. Confidence suits you, for now. She handed Leo a file, the details of the project tightly outlined, though the specifics were open to creative interpretation. I expect updates, but not interference. This is your domain now. Impress me, or at least survive long enough to explain why you didn't. Leo took the file, her pulse quickening at the challenge, and smirked. Survival is my specialty. Impressing, even better. Victoria's eyes lingered on her for a moment, measuring, calculating, before she straightened. Remember, Miss Duval, the world outside the lab doesn't forgive mistakes. And I don't either. As Leo turned to leave, Victoria's voice softened just enough to be dangerously intimate. Oh, and Miss Duval. I'll be watching. Leo paused at the door, a thrill running through her. I wouldn't expect anything less. Once she was alone in the lab, Leo exhaled, opening the file. The assignments were complex, unorthodox, and demanding, the perfect arena for her ingenuity, daring, and precision. But the true test wasn't just the formulation, it was keeping Victoria intrigued, challenged, and perhaps just unsettled enough to show cracks in that perfectly composed exterior. As she began gathering ingredients, adjusting measurements, and sketching scent profiles, she couldn't help but smile. This wasn't just about creating perfume anymore, it was a game of skill, nerve, and fire between two women who refused to surrender. And somewhere above, Victoria Blackwood's gaze remained on her, a silent, electrifying shadow of attention, warning, and intrigue. Chapter 18. The Bold Experiment. The lab was alive with anticipation. Vials clinked softly, ingredients lined the counters like soldiers awaiting command. Leo moved among them with precision and purpose, her mind running through possibilities, combinations, and contrasts. Victoria lingered just beyond the glass partition, arms crossed, observing without interference. Her gray eyes were sharp, calculating, measuring every movement, every decision. Leo inhaled deeply, selecting jasmine as the foundation, but this time, she layered it with something unexpected, a hint of smoked leather, a whisper of rare orchid, and an undercurrent of amber resin. It was bold, unconventional, and dangerously alluring. As she worked, Victoria finally stepped closer, just outside the immediate work area, letting the scent drift toward her. "That's unusual," Victoria said softly, tone carefully neutral. "And risky." Leo didn't flinch. Risk is part of innovation. Safe choices make safe products. Safe products bore me. Victoria's eyes flicked to hers, an imperceptible twitch at the corner of her lips betraying a faint trace of intrigue. "And yet, you handle the danger, with surprising skill." Leo poured the final drop, swirling it into the mix with steady hands. She lifted a tester strip, inhaled deliberately, then held it toward Victoria. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the ventilation. Victoria took the strip, inhaled slowly, deliberately, and the change was almost imperceptible. Her gray eyes softened slightly, a flicker of approval that she would never openly admit. "Interesting," Victoria said finally, her voice low, calculated. "It's provocative. Defies expectation. And yet, it works." Leo's smirk returned, subtle, confident. "Provocative, like someone I know." Victoria's gaze sharpened, almost a warning, but the faintest hint of acknowledgement lingered. "Bold. You're bold." Leo held her eye contact, letting the tension stretch between them. "I didn't create it to impress you. I created it to challenge you." Victoria's lips quirked, just slightly. Challenge and intrigue. Dangerous combination. Leo leaned back slightly, still holding the strip. "Perhaps that's the point." Victoria's eyes followed her, a silent predator calculating every detail. "I'll admit, I'm curious to see where this goes. But remember, Miss Duval, audacity is only tolerated when it succeeds." Leo inhaled subtly, letting the bold, unorthodox scent of her creation fill the air. "Then I'll make sure it does." For the first time, Victoria allowed herself to linger a fraction longer in the room, silently acknowledging the skill, daring, and defiance in front of her. It was the quietest approval she would ever give, but Leo could feel it, unmistakable and thrilling. Chapter 19. Name and Recognition. The lab smelled of innovation and daring. Leo held the final vial of her experimental blend, fingers curling lightly around the glass. Victoria stood across the counter, arms crossed, gray eyes sharp and focused, the perfect image of composed authority. "It's finished," Leo said softly. "And I suppose it's time for a name." Victoria's gaze flicked to the vial, then back to Leo. "A name should reflect the scent, its daring, its subtle danger, its unorthodox character. Do you have one in mind?" Leo smiled faintly, letting the suspense linger. "I do, and it's one I think will surprise you." Victoria arched an eyebrow. "Surprise me? Bold claim, Miss Duval." "Go on." Leo's voice dropped, confident and deliberate. "I call it Eclipse. A scent that hides in shadow, defies expectation, and captivates without revealing everything at once." Victoria's eyes narrowed slightly, the faintest quirk at the corner of her lips betraying intrigue. Eclipse. Fitting. Dangerous, alluring, and impossible to ignore. Leo smirked. "Much like someone else I know." Victoria's gaze held hers, silent but intense. "Do not think for a second that I'm granting praise freely. But your choice works." Before Leo could respond, her phone buzzed, an alert from Marcus. A quick glance showed the numbers. Sales of the existing Blackwood lines had spiked, and the pre-orders for her new experimental scents were overwhelming. Midnight Rebellion and the other improved perfumes were flying off the shelves. She glanced at Victoria, who had moved slightly closer, watching her reaction with careful eyes. Looks like the market agrees, Leo said, a triumphant smirk playing on her lips. Victoria's lips curved just barely, a fleeting acknowledgement. The market doesn't lie, but I still prefer to evaluate talent myself. Leo's grin widened. Consider this your personal evaluation. I passed. Victoria's gaze held hers, gray eyes sharp, calculating, but beneath the surface, a flicker of admiration remained. For now, she said finally. But audacity alone does not guarantee consistency. Keep this up, Miss Duval, and you'll be unforgettable. Leo inhaled, savoring the scent of her creations, the thrill of challenge, and the undeniable tension between them. I wouldn't have it any other way. As Victoria stepped back, letting the lab space return to its quiet rhythm, Leo felt the weight of accomplishment settle on her shoulders, but more than that, she felt the dangerous, intoxicating pull of Victoria Blackwood's attention. A force that promised every day in this tower would be a battle of skill, wit, and fire. And for the first time, Leo realized she was ready to meet it head-on. Chapter 20. The Public Launch. The grand ballroom of the city's top hotel gleamed under crystal chandeliers. Blackwood Incorporated's name shone in bold letters across the stage, and media flashes lit the room like a constellation of tiny stars. Industry elites, journalists, and clients filled the space, murmuring with anticipation. Leo adjusted the display of vials, her hands steady despite the racing pulse beneath her calm exterior. The scent of Midnight Rebellion mingled with the improved Blackwood line, creating a heady, intoxicating atmosphere. Victoria stood beside her, poised and commanding, gray eyes scanning the room like a predator sizing up her territory. Her presence was magnetic, drawing attention even from those who didn't know her reputation. Leo glanced at her, smirking slightly. This is going to be fun. Victoria's lips twitched at the corner, a subtle acknowledgement of the challenge. Fun is not the word I'd use, she replied coolly. But necessary. The presentation began. Leo demonstrated each scent with precision, weaving a story that highlighted their daring, uniqueness, and elegance. The crowd leaned in, captivated by her confidence and command. Victoria observed quietly, arms crossed, noting every detail, every movement. Occasionally, her gaze flicked to Leo with something that could almost be read as respect, though she would never admit it openly. When Leo unveiled Eclipse, the audience was silent for a heartbeat, then erupted into murmurs of admiration. It was unconventional, mysterious, and daring, a scent that left everyone intrigued, some slightly unsettled, and all impressed. Victoria finally stepped forward, her voice carrying effortlessly across the room. A bold step forward for Blackwood Incorporated. These creations are proof that risk, when guided by skill, yields excellence. Leo caught the faintest smirk at Victoria's lips, approval, subtle but undeniable. After the formalities, the crowd began to disperse, and the team congratulated Leo quietly, some in awe, others whispering about her audacity. Marcus gave her a knowing nod, while Victoria lingered near the edge of the display, watching, calculating. Finally, Victoria's voice cut through the post-event buzz, low and deliberate. Miss Duval, you've done well, today. The world may not know yet, but I do. Leo met her gaze evenly, heart quickening slightly. Thank you. That means something coming from you. Victoria's gray eyes flicked briefly toward the city skyline beyond the windows. Do not mistake it for praise freely given, she murmured, almost to herself. But you've earned attention. Keep it. Leo smiled faintly, savoring the thrill. Oh, I intend to. As the evening wound down, the success of Midnight Rebellion and the improved Blackwood line was evident. Pre-orders skyrocketed, the media buzzed, and industry insiders whispered about the daring new scents and the audacious mind behind them. Yet, despite all the external recognition, Leo knew the true victory, the subtle, restrained, but undeniable acknowledgement from Victoria Blackwood was the prize she would chase endlessly. And somewhere beneath the composed exterior, Victoria allowed herself a single thought. This woman was not only capable, daring, and bold, she was a force she had not anticipated, and she would not be ignored. Chapter 21. After the launch. The ballroom had emptied, the last flashes of cameras fading into memory. Leo stayed behind, carefully arranging the remaining samples and notes, letting the adrenaline of the successful launch settle. The soft click of heels on the marble floor made her glance up. Victoria stood in the doorway, gray eyes sharp, surveying the lab-like corner they'd claimed for post-event tidying. "You survived the day," Victoria said, voice low, controlled, carrying that unmistakable weight of authority. Leo tilted her head, smirking. "I didn't just survive, Miss Blackwood. I thrived." Victoria stepped closer, her presence magnetic, every inch purposeful. "Thrived and captured attention. The market responded better than I anticipated." And yet, she paused, letting the words hang like a knife poised to strike. "You've also captured mine." Leo's pulse quickened, the tension between them crackling. "Good. I intended to." Victoria's eyes flicked to the remaining vials of Eclipse and Midnight Rebellion, then back to Leo. "Bold, unorthodox, reckless, in the right measure. I've always appreciated skill, but you test my patience and curiosity in equal parts." Leo stepped a fraction closer, meeting Victoria's gaze head-on. "And I intend to continue doing so. Both your patience and curiosity seem entertaining." Victoria's lips curved slightly at the corner, almost a smile, but her voice remained firm. "Entertaining, yes. But be warned, Miss Duval. I do not reward audacity lightly." Leo's smirk deepened, the thrill of the challenge igniting her. "I don't expect rewards. I expect recognition." Victoria studied her for a long, charged moment. Then, quietly, she allowed herself a rare, measured acknowledgement. "Recognition, you've earned it. But don't let it make you complacent. The next challenge will be far less forgiving." Leo's heart raced, not with fear, but with excitement. "Good. I like a challenge." Victoria leaned just slightly closer, close enough that the faint scent of her perfume mingled with Eclipse in the air. "And she murmured, like someone who refuses to be tamed. Leo met her gaze evenly, holding the electricity between them, unshaken. "Then we're well matched." Victoria's gray eyes flickered with the barest hint of amusement, or maybe acknowledgement, before she stepped back, straightening her posture. "For now," she said softly yet firmly. "But do not mistake leniency for weakness." Leo let the tension linger a moment longer, inhaling the scent of her creations, Victoria's presence, and the thrill of challenge. "I wouldn't dream of it." As Victoria finally turned and left, Leo allowed herself a satisfied breath. She had faced the ultimate scrutiny, survived, and perhaps slightly unraveled the enigma that was Victoria Blackwood. And for the first time, she felt that the game between them had truly begun, high stakes, dangerous, intoxicating, and far from over. Chapter 22. The Independent Challenge. The lab hummed with quiet activity, a controlled chaos of scents, vials, and glass instruments. Leo moved with precision, her mind cycling through formulas, notes, and possibilities, each decision deliberate. Victoria entered silently, her presence commanding, heels clicking against the polished floor. Her gray eyes scanned the lab, resting on Leo with that precise, calculating stare that could both unnerve and ignite. "Miss Duval," she began, voice calm but carrying an edge of authority. "You've proven capable with Midnight Rebellion and Eclipse. But this is different." Leo arched an eyebrow, intrigued. "Different how?" Victoria walked closer, her gaze sharp. "You're to develop a scent entirely independent of our current lines. A fragrance that must appeal to the most discerning, the most fickle clientele. No templates. No safety nets. Nothing familiar. Success will elevate you. Failure," her gray eyes flickered with the faintest edge of warning, "will teach you humility." Leo's smirk returned, confident and deliberate. "Nothing familiar. I like the sound of that. And I'm no stranger to audacity." Victoria's lips curved slightly, almost a smile she would deny later. "Audacity, precise, not reckless. I'll be observing, but not intervening. This is your domain. Convince me, and the market." Leo inhaled deeply, the familiar thrill of challenge coursing through her. "Then I'll make sure it's unforgettable." Over the next days, she experimented relentlessly, blending rare botanicals, unexpected accords, and subtle contrasts. Each attempt pushed boundaries, challenged preconceptions, and drew Victoria's measured, calculating attention. Victoria would appear at the lab periodically, silent, observing, her presence alone enough to sharpen every instinct Leo possessed. Impressive, but not complete, she remarked once, gray eyes assessing, body tense with controlled energy. Leo smiled, leaning toward her. Not complete? Then I'll keep pushing. I like seeing that spark in your eyes, though you'll never admit it. Victoria's lips twitched, the faintest acknowledgement of interest. Perhaps, or perhaps I'm simply ensuring you don't ruin everything before it reaches perfection. The tension between them was electric, each observation, remark, and subtle smile charged with challenge. And finally, after endless testing, refining, and daring choices, Leo held the final vial of her new creation, a scent daring, unorthodox, and entirely her own. Victoria approached, gray eyes sharp and expectant. She inhaled deliberately, carefully, her expression neutral yet betraying something beneath the surface. This is dangerous. Bold. Unlike anything I've seen in my collection. I'll allow myself to admit, it intrigues me. Leo's pulse quickened. It was meant to. Victoria's gaze met hers, piercing yet unreadable. It will take time for the world to accept it, but you've earned my cautious approval. Do not squander it. Leo held the vial high, the scent of her creation filling the lab, a bold, intoxicating testament to skill, nerve, and defiance. I don't intend to. And somewhere beneath the carefully maintained composure, Victoria allowed herself a silent acknowledgement. This woman was not only brilliant, audacious, and stubborn, she was a force to be reckoned with. Chapter 23. Market Unleashed. The city buzzed with anticipation. Luxury boutiques, social media influencers, and industry insiders were abuzz with news of Blackwood Incorporated's latest creation, a fragrance entirely crafted by Leo Duval. Leo stood in the showroom, arranging the final displays, her pulse steady, but excitement simmering just beneath her calm exterior. Every detail mattered, the presentation, the lighting, the subtle hints of her creation in the air. Victoria entered quietly, hands clasped behind her back, gray eyes scanning the room like a predator assessing its territory. The faint scent of her perfume mingled with Leo's bold creation, creating a heady, charged atmosphere. You've gone far beyond expectation, Victoria remarked, her voice low, measured. And yet, she stepped closer, letting her gaze meet Leo's directly. The real test begins now. The world will decide your merit, not just me. Leo's smirk was subtle, confident. Then let them. I trust in what I've created, and I trust in myself. The rollout began. Influencers and media were given samples, invited to exclusive previews, and the buzz spread like wildfire. Early reviews were overwhelmingly positive, daring, unorthodox, intoxicating, and unforgettable. Pre-orders skyrocketed, social media buzzed, and even competitors whispered about the audacity of Leo's creation. Victoria observed quietly, arms crossed, expression neutral but sharp, noting every reaction, every comment, every whisper of approval. She approached Leo, voice low, controlled, yet carrying a rare hint of acknowledgement. They're responding well. Better than I expected, Leo said, letting a subtle satisfaction shine through. Victoria's eyes met hers, sharp and calculating. Impressive. You've managed to capture attention, intrigue, and approval, all without my interference. That alone is notable. Leo's grin widened, daring. I aim to impress. And sometimes, even the untouchable notice. Victoria's lips curved almost imperceptibly, the smallest acknowledgement. Notice, yes. But do not confuse intrigue for leniency. The next challenge will be harder. The market will test you differently, and I will be watching every step. Leo inhaled subtly, letting the scent of her creation mingle with the faint trace of Victoria's perfume. Then I'll keep them and you on your toes. Victoria's eyes softened just slightly, though she would deny it later. Do not mistake this. Attention for approval freely given. But, she added, voice low, measured, You have earned it. For now. The showroom thrummed with energy, sales agents reporting surging numbers, media buzzing, and Leo felt the thrill of victory, not just for the market, but for the silent acknowledgement she had drawn from the formidable Victoria Blackwood. And somewhere beneath the poised, icy exterior, Victoria allowed herself a rare, fleeting thought. This woman was not only audacious, brilliant, and unyielding, she was someone impossible to ignore. Chapter 24. The Secret Assignment. The elevator doors opened to the top floors of Blackwood Tower. Leo stepped out, clutching the file Victoria had handed her earlier that morning. Its contents were sparse, intentionally vague, a challenge dressed as an assignment. Victoria waited at the end of the hall, leaning casually against the polished wall, arms crossed, eyes sharp and commanding. The faint scent of her signature perfume drifted in the air, mingling with the subtle hints of eclipse that Leo carried. "You made it," Victoria said, voice calm but edged with authority. "And on time, which is fortunate." Leo met her gaze evenly, smirking. "I wouldn't dream of being late." "Not for you, Miss Blackwood." Victoria's lips quirked almost imperceptibly. "Flattery is unnecessary. Competence is required. And this project will demand everything you have. Creativity, precision, audacity. I expect nothing less than perfection." Leo tilted her head, intrigued. "Nothing less. Got it. But why the secrecy?" Victoria's gaze sharpened. "Some risks are too dangerous to expose publicly until they succeed. This project could redefine the company or end careers. I trust you not to fail." Leo's pulse quickened, a thrill running through her veins. "Trust, that's dangerous." "I like it." Victoria's gray eyes studied her, calculating, measuring. "Dangerous is part of my business. And, perhaps, part of your making. You'll have access to restricted formulas, experimental blends, and the freedom to innovate. But there's one condition." Leo raised an eyebrow. "One condition?" Victoria stepped closer, close enough that the faint scent of her perfume enveloped Leo. "You report only to me. No one else. Your results, your mistakes, they are mine to see first. Fail me, and there will be consequences." Leo inhaled the subtle blend of authority and challenge, smirk returning. "Consequences. I'm ready for them." Victoria's lips curved faintly, a dangerous acknowledgement. "Good. Then begin. And Miss Duval." "Yes. Do not underestimate me. I will be watching every decision, every movement, every risk. And I will not forgive mistakes lightly." Leo's grin widened, a spark of defiance in her eyes. "I wouldn't dream of it. And I'll make sure you notice when I succeed." Victoria stepped back, letting the words hang like an unspoken challenge in the air. "We shall see, Miss Duval. We shall see." As Leo entered the lab, the weight of the secret assignment settled on her shoulders, a challenge of ingenuity, nerve, and audacity. But beneath it all, she felt the thrill of testing boundaries not just for the company, but for the one woman whose attention and scrutiny she craved more than any market approval. And somewhere in the towering offices above the city, Victoria Blackwood allowed herself a rare, silent acknowledgement. This woman was far more formidable than she had anticipated. Chapter 25. First Breakthrough. The lab was quiet, the only sounds the gentle hum of machinery and the soft clink of glass as Leo worked. Hours of experimentation, calculation, and daring combinations had led to this moment, the possibility of a true breakthrough. Victoria stood silently near the glass wall, arms crossed, observing without interference. Her eyes were sharp, assessing, the faintest trace of curiosity hidden beneath her composed exterior. Leo inhaled deeply, lifting a vial of her latest blend. It was unorthodox, daring, a scent that combined contrasts most would never dare to mix, a smoky leather base softened with rare florals, a touch of spice that teased rather than overwhelmed. She swirled the vial carefully, letting the aroma expand in the air. Then, with a steady hand, she presented a tester strip to Victoria. Victoria inhaled deliberately, expression neutral, then paused, just long enough to let the subtle complexity of the scent register. Her eyes narrowed slightly, the smallest flicker of acknowledgement betraying her intrigue. Interesting, Victoria said finally, voice low and controlled. Unpredictable. Bold, but controlled. It's impressive. Leo allowed herself a faint, confident smile. I call it nocturne. A scent that plays in shadows, daring yet refined like someone I know. Victoria's lips twitched at the corner, a rare, subtle acknowledgement. Audacious. Naming it after darkness. Fitting. Leo stepped closer, letting the faintest trace of her own perfume mingle with the creation in the air. Darkness doesn't have to be dangerous. It can be intoxicating. And challenging. Victoria's gaze held hers, sharp, calculating, and just slightly softened at the edges. Challenging, yes. But remember, brilliance alone does not guarantee success. Execution is everything. Leo's smirk deepened. Then consider this my first act of execution. Victoria studied her for a long, charged moment. You have skill, audacity, and nerve. Do not squander them, Miss Duval. I will be watching, and I expect more. Leo inhaled the scent of her creation, letting the satisfaction of success mingle with the thrill of the unspoken challenge. I don't intend to. Victoria stepped back, her eyes lingering just slightly longer than necessary. For now, this is acceptable. But the next stage will test everything, your creativity, your nerve, and your control. Leo's pulse quickened at the challenge, the thrill of proving herself not just to the market, but to the untouchable Victoria Blackwood. I welcome it. I wouldn't have it any other way. As Victoria departed, leaving Leo alone with her breakthrough, the air seemed charged, the promise of audacity, the weight of scrutiny, and the subtle, dangerous pull between them all intertwining. Leo knew this was only the beginning. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe and like this video and follow me for more stories. You are always welcome here, and leave me a comment or a thumbs up, just letting me know if you like the story and would like more, or is there perhaps an idea that you would like to share or let me write for you.